So earlier this week, or last week, Israel has been going through a lot, basically. In terms of, well, I mean, they've been doing a lot. They've been barely going through anything. If anything, they've been dishing out a lot more than, like way more than they've been receiving. So to start off, let's talk about their invasion into Lebanon. We have this report here from Al Jazeera.
It's 23 GMT, 2 a.m. in Lebanon, where Israel has begun its ground offensive into the south. A short while ago, Israeli forces fired flares into the night sky amid heavy shelling. Israeli soldiers and military vehicles have been amassing along the border over the past several hours. Flares are commonly used to signal troops on the ground and light their path, as well as to confirm targets. Throughout Monday, Israeli airstrikes continue to target southern Lebanon. Intense bombing was seen in Marjayoun. By night, airstrikes hit the area of Tyre near the coast. Hezbollah says it's fighting back with shelling and rocket attacks. Several Israeli airstrikes have hit the southern suburbs of Beirut. A series of loud explosions were heard across the city just after midnight. Those attacks came shortly after Israeli forces repeated their same tactic of issuing chaotic evacuation orders that we have seen in Gaza. Meanwhile, in northern Israel, the army has declared closed military zones. Entry to the town of Metula on Israel's border with Lebanon has been prohibited. The communities of Kafar Giladi and Misgav Am are also closed. Well, we have a team of correspondents covering all angles of this developing story in Washington, D.C., Beirut, Marjayoun, southern Lebanon. But first we go to Amman, Jordan, where Hamda Salhout is. And across all the latest lines coming out of Israel, Hamda, in just the last few minutes, a statement from the Israeli military confirming that it's been conducting limited incursions into southern Lebanon.
Seems like they're having audio issues.
Lebanese territory. An army statement said that this actually began a few hours ago after the approval from the political echelon within Israel. These are the meetings that we've been talking about over the last couple of hours that included the Israeli prime minister, his security cabinet, and then other security and defense officials. The army says that first, they launched these what they call targeted and precise raids based on intelligence, and that they are going to launch this offensive on the ground in order to achieve their goals of restoring the balance of power along the border, as well as returning those evacuated Israelis back to those towns and settlements that have been evacuated since the cross-border fire began. The Israeli army has said that they are looking to target Hezbollah posts and other military infrastructure in the border area. It does not say how deep they plan to push into Lebanese territory, but make no mistake, this is now a full Israeli invasion into Lebanon.
It's just fucking terrible. I mean, this comes after the fucking huge amount of attacks that they've been just devastating Lebanon with, like with the pager attacks and just relentlessly bombing them. But yeah, so here's what we have to know about the ground invasion itself. Israel has launched a ground operation across its northern border into Lebanon, targeting the Iran-backed militant group Hezbollah, opening a new and dangerous phase in almost a year of war. And that is also something when it comes to like Western media, is that whenever they talk about these attacks, they'll be like, oh, they're attacking Hezbollah. But like they make that out as if everyone, like every person who is a casualty of these strikes are Hezbollah soldiers, when they're not. There's plenty of people who are affected by this who are just regular old civilians. But the media in the West make it out like these were all just terrorists. The incursion, which Israel's National Security Cabinet has called the next phase of its war with Hezbollah, marks the fourth time that Israeli soldiers have publicly entered Lebanese soil in nearly 50 years, and the first time since Israel's 34-day war in the country in 2006. Israel's troops laid the groundwork for what it called a limited ground operation in recent days, ramping up air attacks that have killed hundreds of people, destroyed homes, and displaced about 1 million people in Lebanon. The latest escalation comes after Israel killed Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah in an airstrike on Friday and decimated the leadership of the most powerful paramilitary force in the Middle East. Here's what we know. Israel's officials have have characterized the incursion into southern Lebanon as limited in scope, saying there will be no long-term occupation. Sure, we'll see about that. Officials have, however, declined to say how deep Israel's troops would venture into the country or how long the operation is expected to last. On Tuesday, the Israeli military called on residents to move more than 24 villages in southern Lebanon to evacuate approximately 30 miles into the country. An Israeli security official told reporters on condition of anonymity Tuesday morning that the operation does not amount to an invasion or incursion, describing it instead as a localized raids that are very limited in scope and in the area of operation. It's just fucking disgusting. Like, they can use all this soft language that they want to use, be like, oh, we're just gonna be here for like a short amount of time, we just want to gather the area, just make sure we deal with Hezbollah, but it's also like, but we're also gonna bomb hundreds of innocent civilians in the process too. It's the fucking disgusting no matter how you put it. And also, I forget which one came before or after. I believe they launched the ground invasion beforehand, and then there was I don't know, I think Iran, it doesn't really matter, but whatever. So Israel is also dealing with a missile attack from Iran, which I believe didn't result in any deaths in terms of Israeli citizens. I believe most of the targets were just military bases. And here's the thing, if there was any civilian deaths, they would be milking the fuck out of it, but it doesn't seem like they are. And I don't think if the strikes hit any military operations or any military equipment, they would really say anything. That way they can keep themselves looking big and strong. But let's just read this article here from Al Jazeera. Iran has launched an unprecedented attack against Israel, firing a barrage of missiles at the country in the latest escalation amid weeks of soaring violence and tensions in the region. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said on Tuesday that it fired missiles at Israel in response to the deadly Israeli attacks against people in Gaza and Lebanon, as well as the assassinations of top IRGC, Hamas, and Hezbollah leaders. Alarms sounded in Israel on Tuesday evening as the missiles fell on major cities and towns. Israel and its top ally, the United States, said their respective militaries worked together to shoot down most of the nearly 200 projectiles that were fired by Iran. The Israeli army said only a few hits were recorded in central and southern parts of the country, while 2 people were injured from falling shrapnel in the Tel Aviv area, according to Israel's emergency service. So, no, obviously, so 2 people were injured and that sucks, but no deaths at this point in time. The exact details of the Iranian operation remain unclear, but the IRGC said in a statement that the missiles were aimed at vital military and security targets in Israel. So yeah, that's the whole thing, and things just seem to be ramping up more and more. And the response from America has been that great, but we'll get into that after we watch this little clip, because this is how the Western media likes to portray this.
Were Israeli airfields, but also, and this is crucial, the headquarters of Mossad, the International Intelligence Service of Israel, which is inside Tel Aviv. It's in the northern part of Tel Aviv, but it's in the city. It's in a densely populated area. And of course, the concern is if you're firing, even though Iran might consider that a military target, it is in a densely populated city with civilians around it. And that's just one more layer of escalation.
And the reason why I want to focus on this is because you will never, ever hear them talk about it. Talk about, one side of this conflict launching missiles at another side and talking about the human casualties, the civilian casualties. You'll never hear about that if Israel is the one that's doing it. If Israel is launching rockets into Lebanon, into Gaza, wherever they launch rockets from, you will never hear him or any other CNN reporter be like, but what about the civilians there? They might bring it up sometimes. They might, just in passing, but they'll focus on, but this was a weapons cache. This is where, Hamas leaders were at. But in this case, they really want you to focus on, well, civilians are near these areas. And obviously, here's the thing. Like, obviously, civilians should not be getting caught up with what's been going on. They should not face, the casualties of it, regardless of which side it's on. But it's always important to pay attention to what exactly they're saying when it comes to the same situation, but when Israel is the victim of it. Because now it's important that civilians are not in the crossfires, even though, again, only 2 people were injured in this attack. But when Israel does it to Gaza, kills a bunch of civilians, and also gets one Hamas leader or something, then then who cares, because they got the Hamas leader. Or when Lebanon, or with Lebanon, a lot of the focus was oh, well, the pagers were used by Hezbollah members. Yeah, there were Hezbollah members that used pagers, but these pagers are also used by so many people. So many other people who aren't Hezbollah at all. But you don't hear them talk about that. They're just well, it did get Hezbollah soldiers, though. Some of them. It's just so fucking stupid. The way that they cover with this. And also, this topic got brought up with the vice presidential debate, which I was planning on covering, but I don't think I'm going to. With JD Vance and Tim Walz. Tim Walz, who in the beginning did not have a good performance. He got better later on, but at the same time, in the beginning, he just just really bad, and it especially did not help that the first question that they went off of is, what's going on here? And he just did not have a good answer for it at all. Biden was also questioned about it during this little meeting he had a few days ago, where he kind of just didn't really, he said his thing. The question was about Benjamin Netanyahu not doing any sort of ceasefire until the presidential election. And, his answer went as smoothly as you thought it would be. But yeah, that's really it when it comes down to this. Israel continues to act on its worst behavior, and the Western media, the U.S. government itself, just continues to applaud them. But what do you expect at this point?